Hey there, Roberto here. Jason Resnick makes a return appearance on the podcast in this episode. We talk about word-of-mouth marketing, how Jason has built his business on it, ways to improve your word-of-mouth marketing, and a very clever tip on pricing strategy. Let's do it. This is the Partner for Leads Biz podcast for small business owners and personal brand builders. It's for those of you who want to build your business in a smarter, relationships-first way. Welcome to another episode. I'm your host, Roberto Hernandez. My guest, Jason Resnick, aka Rez, is a friend, a freelancer, a fellow podcaster, and a coach. He's also a husband and a dad. I'm on his email list, and he recently caught my attention with an email about word-of-mouth marketing, something near and dear to the Partner for Leads community and business owners at large. Would you like to know what I'm learning from business owners and entrepreneurs that I interview for this podcast and the others I've known for 10 or more years? Head over to partnerforleads.com and join our community. You'll get an occasional email from me with tips, insights, lessons learned, the latest podcast episodes, and much, much more. Plus, you'll get a free gift from me that I think you're going to enjoy. I asked Jason how he's approached word-of-mouth marketing, and we also talk about a freelancer strategy that works when you're just getting started out, and it works in conjunction with word-of-mouth marketing. We also talk about what word-of-mouth marketing has meant to his business. Spoiler alert, he's never spent money on ads. We also chat about Season 6 of his Live in the Feast podcast, which is dedicated to pricing. Season 6, that is. This leads to a super interesting thread on one way to effectively use pay what you think it's worth pricing, possibly my favorite part of this conversation. Here is me and Jason Resnick. Tell me about Freelance chat on Twitter. We wanted to talk, or I wanted to talk to you today because you were doing something on Freelance chat having to do with word-of-mouth marketing. So tell me about Freelance chat. I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, that's the second time that I've done it. I guess I did it first time about 6 months ago. Michelle, she runs it, and she's basically, I guess she's like a PR agent. But what she does is it's a Twitter chat, and I didn't really know these things existed, but there's evidently a lot of different kinds of Twitter chats. There's freelance chat, there's content, there's marketing, there's video, there's like a whole bunch of different Twitter chats that happen. And it's essentially like a live stream, but via text. So like people come on and they, like Michelle invites a guest on, and I don't know that all Twitter chats are this way, but what she does for freelance chat is she invites a guest on to talk about a specific topic and answer questions centered around that topic, usually 5 questions over the course of the 45 minutes or an hour. And then everybody kind of comes together and talks about these things. She throws the questions out there. The guest expert answers and gives some tips and tricks and resources and that sort of stuff. And then everybody else that's a part of that, following that hashtag at that point in time, adds into that. And so it's a pretty cool, fast-paced. Like the first time I did it, I didn't prepare, because she asks what questions, what questions do I want to answer, essentially. But the first time I didn't prepare the questions, and it was a fast and furious. So I'm trying to type, but I'm also trying to engage in the audience, the crowd as well. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, I can't keep up. So this time around, I prepared answers ahead of time. So I wrote them out. I even put them on Twitter, making sure that they were going to fit and like all the rest of it. So this way I could engage in the chat too. Right. And so, it's fun. It's a fun time. And I kind of look at it as like a podcast guest, or, coming on a live stream or something of that nature, where I just try to help as many people as you can.
That's neat. It seems like it could potentially serve to build some authority out there on Twitter, like for someone like you and obviously Michelle Garrett, who runs it. I had to go look her up again and see. You kind of said that she does some PR work, or she's a PR consultant. I had to look her up and see. She's got herself listed here as a writer, blogger, and PR consultant. But yeah, it looks like a very well organized thing. So the subject was word of mouth marketing, and you may remember this, but the inception of a partner for Leads, which is who this podcast is in large part for, was a referral leads group network that focuses on developing, word of mouth marketing for its members, and kind of a mastermind with in that it's word of mouth marketing with accountability built in. But they get the value and importance of it, but they're always looking for creative approaches to growing their referral business. So I guess a nice question to ask might be, what are some of the ways you've approached or created word of mouth marketing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very different, like all different sorts of ways. Some have worked, some haven't. But I try to create these experiences with working with me that is memorable for the client. It could be anything from launching a site, let's say, or a brand new feature set or something of that nature, and sending a gift to my client based around some knowledge that I have. An example that I have is I knew my client was into baseball, and his son was as well. And they didn't have a major league team around them, but they had a minor league team, 30 minutes from their house. And so I bought them tickets to one of the minor league games, right? Sending some, even just a thoughtful gift in a way where it's like even ingrained in your business. Laura Elizabeth, she shared with me that what she always struggled with as a designer, and site builder, branding, all the rest of it, she struggled with getting content from her customers. And even though that she had explicit questions to ask and really tried to prompt the content to come to her in the easiest way, she still struggled with it. So what she did instead was at the start of her engagement, she would send them a gift card to either Starbucks or a local cafe or something of that nature, with a note card saying, "Hey, I know that your life is busy. This is a tough thing to do, to be able to carve out an hour or 2 hours. Have a coffee on me. Go fill out this questionnaire." Spend some time, and then turn it back in. And so what she did there was a couple of psychological triggers. Was that person, every time they see that gift card, whether it's in their purse or their wallet, is going to think that, I don't want to spend it right on not Laura's thing, right? So it's always going to be a prompt that, hey, I need to get Laura this information. And so just being able to create these kind of moments in time, which are, and Jay Baer talks about talk triggers, is these things have to be remarkable, right? And remarkable is a word which basically just means, hey, look, I want to talk about this thing again. It's right. So it's like, if you create that moment in time, hey, if you need a website and Laura's doing your branding, or somebody's going to do your branding, well, Laura did mine, and she actually bought me coffee, even though that we're not in the same location. She bought me a coffee and was able to have this process, and this is how easy it was for me to do that, because she essentially carved the time out for me, right? My clients, creating these micro experiences as well, like it creates that moment in time where that client, he was well aware, and he's referred me tons of work since, but, he said Jason was well aware of mine and my son's interests just from casual conversations that I had with the client. And he turned that around in an experience, just as a celebration of the work that we did together. So that's one aspect. Another aspect is just essentially the passive ask. Right. So, and what I mean by that is you're emailing your clients all the time. You're emailing them for status updates. You're emailing them for, new things on the project. You're emailing them all the time. In the bottoms of those emails, which is what I do, is oftentimes, and not on every single email, usually at key emails, or if I haven't asked them for something in a while, I will actually put, hey, if you have heard of anybody in your circles, family, friends, colleagues, that needs help with X, I wouldn't mind an introduction to them and see if I can help them in the same way that I helped you.
That's cool. Yep.
And it's sort of like that passive. I use that term passive with quotes around it because it's not so much passive, but it's working it into your process already, because you're already doing it, and it's nothing more than just a prompt to them to say, "Oh, yeah, I do know somebody. I had a conversation last week with somebody," but they're not going to be thinking about you. Right? They're going to be thinking about themselves or the moment that they're in. They're not thinking about you. So you have to ask them to essentially create that connection. And that's what word of mouth marketing is that people always talk about, hey, what is the number one way you get business? Oh, word of mouth. Oh, okay. So how do you do that? Oh, I don't know. It's by chance. Well, then that's not a lead generation or marketing strategy, right? When you create a word of mouth marketing strategy, there's the intent that you are putting yourself out there in a way that allows somebody else to refer you, right?
That's really a really important point. What's the best advice that you can offer to people that are wanting to build this facet of their business in terms of creating a strategy around it? Maybe just some high level, points for them to consider so that they can put together a strategy and not be, the word flippant comes to mind, but anyway, without the direction or the intent.
Well, I think the whole idea of word of mouth is that intent. You want them to refer you the work, right? What I did and what I suggest to my coaching clients and anybody who really asks is have it be natural. What are you doing now? How are you communicating to your clients now? Is it mostly via email? Okay, so take a point at which you are sending regular emails. Add that PS to the bottom. On phone calls, right? If you have weekly phone calls with your clients, where it's more of just like a status update, or it's like, hey, this is what we did this week, and this is what we're going to do next week, and away we go. Well, at the end of those calls, especially if you finished up a phase of the project or a milestone, people are excited. They're amped up about that. There's emotion there. So that's a good time to ask, right? So work it into your existing process where there are opportunities for you to capitalize on and ask, because you have to ask, because like, again, I can't stress this point enough, is that they're not going to be thinking about you. You have to create that moment so that they are. And if you're not doing that, then you're not creating the opportunity for that word of mouth to be more predictable into your business. So
it sounds very, very simple. And then the tough part, of course, is in just the doing and the just asking. But that's great. And it's refreshing. So there's nothing terribly complicated about it. Thanks, by the way, for mentioning JBear and Talk Triggers. I had made myself a note. I haven't checked out that book, but I know that you think very highly of it, and I'll include it in the show notes for people that are listening. And also, while I'm on the subject, you have done a handful, looks like at least four podcast episodes on word of mouth marketing, and I'm going to include those in the show notes because I know that they are going to be quite good as well. There was another, and thanks for kind of segueing into the strategy of making the ask in emails and making that part of your routine or process. You had also mentioned I think it was in the same email that got me excited about talking with you today, a freelancer tip that I think can work it doesn't necessarily work for every business, and Partner for Leads is by no means all freelancers. It does include some for sure, but you had this tip in there about if you're just starting out, which we do get a number of those folks are just starting out in their in their field or their new venture, and you had a tip in there for freelancers on if you want to do a free, put out a little free work so that you can get some testimonials or whatnot, or a portfolio going. You had some tips around that where word of mouth marketing was concerned. Can you talk about that? I thought it was a great idea.
Yeah. So when people start out, they often do spec work or free work, as you say, just to kind of build up their client portfolio, if you will. Instead of just doing the work just so that you can have that page on your website or that case study, yes, do that. But then say, hey, look, because I'm not being compensated monetarily this way, would you mind giving me a video testimonial about the work that I did, but also refer me to 3, 5, 7 other people that may need my services. And if you do that several times, let's say 3 times, you get to start building that constant referral network there, because it's obviously going to filter down, right? So if you start with 1 and you get 5, well, now you have 5 people coming to you. Maybe 1 or 2 of those people convert immediately because they need that thing. But the other 3 or 4 still know who you are. They're just maybe not familiar with it, but you already have their email address. So you can keep in contact with them. You can follow up in 3, 6, 12 months, whatever it may be. And you start to build out that referral network immediately about the warm outreach and just having conversations around people that might need the type of work that you do. And so while it's quote unquote free, you're leveraging the contact that you've made as the very first spec work that you did to then filter down to 5, 25, even 100 people right off the bat. And so now you have this network of people that you've connected with at some level that you now have an email address to and a name and a potential need because somebody knew that they needed help with X. So it's something that I hadn't thought about when I started out, but I've heard other people implement this. I've suggested to other people to try this, and it's worked out swimmingly to grow and be able to position, new folks, new businesses in a market very, very quickly.
Yeah, and I know part of this strategy works very well for people that are more established, and as they close wrap up transactions with their clients, they employ a similar tactic and will get referrals that way. So this provides a great reminder for those of us who know about this, know this tip, but maybe aren't practicing it lately or haven't actually done it or tried it. But I thought it was really a cool idea for people starting out who are either doing work for free or maybe they're doing a dramatically discounted something because they're starting out and they want to build up the portfolio. But I think that's a super idea.
Yeah, and mind you that it's not asking after the work's done. It's asking before the work's done.
Yes,
so it's a negotiation real up front that says, hey, look, I'll do this for 5 referrals if you give me 5 referrals. If I'll do this plus this if you want to give me 10 referrals, right? It's using those connection points at which, to get your network up. I was talking to just add on to that as another idea, which I thought was super smart. I was talking with somebody, and what she did was in her contract, and this is during the sales process. They haven't become a client yet, but in her contract, she actually discounts for the number of closed referrals on the back of that project. So what that means
I was just about to ask you if that's, or suggest that that's something you could certainly twist on this, but please continue.
Yeah. I haven't done it myself, but what she does is, and, she obviously, to protect the innocent or whatever, but basically what she does is, case in point, say the contract if you don't give me any referrals that close, it's $10,000. But at the end of that contract, if it's a $10,000 project and you give me 5 referrals and I close 4 of them, well, I'll give you back $5,000 of that 10,000, right? And so she's discounting based on the quality of the referrals and the close rate of those referrals on the back end of that. And I thought that was a super smart way in which to do that, because especially, if that's going to increase the likelihood that that's going to be a good lead for you too, because, they're going to want their money back. Right. And so, I thought that was a super smart way, or a twist on that, especially if you're already getting clients, or maybe you want to grow faster and you want to build a team or something of that nature, where you're at a stage of like, okay, so I have this business, I'm growing, but I'm not growing as fast as I'd like. Well, this could be a strategy to employ that could help you get there.
Oh yeah, that's very clever indeed. I love that. I will definitely share that one. How has word of mouth marketing directly influenced your business and your career?
Oh, I haven't had to spend any ad money, right? So
it's big.
Yeah. I'm in August, I will be 9 years of my own full-time business, and yet I have yet to spend one ad dollar on my services at all. And so that creating that word of mouth allows me to organically get business into my ecosystem, right? Maybe they don't close right away, but maybe they close later. Maybe they do close right away. So it's a matter of which I've been able to build a sustainable business just on that word of mouth, because that's always what worked. I wanted to double down on it. I didn't go ahead and chase that shiny object of, when I started, it was Google Ads. That was the big ad network that you want to do, which is still big. Mm-hmm. But now it's all about Facebook ads and Instagram ads and all that stuff. And I've never run any ads at all. I mean, to the point is like, I'm starting to kind of try to learn it just so I know what the levers to pull are. But that's just for my own education. It's not for the business to implement. And so that's the way that I feel that it's most sustainable, because I don't have to convince cold traffic that I'm somebody that's trustworthy. I have that trust by a proxy based on the connection that I have with that referral.
Yeah, that's interesting. And those new ad networks are so alluring too, aren't they? And they can be complicated, so they can be a lot of time and resources for a business owner. Do you think you'll ever, and maybe you already have, or you're already thinking about it, do you think you'll test some of those, like, for instance, Facebook ads? Do you think you'll ever test that just for the sake of education? Because I know that in your field you may have inquiries about it, and who knows, maybe you think there would be a need for it in your own business. Do you anticipate testing it just to put your new knowledge to work?
Well, so I tested it once to attract other developers into my coaching programs.
Okay.
That's the only part that I see that working, or me trying it. Because like I said, 9 years of doing the client services, that's pretty, and I don't need 100 people coming in every day. I just need a handful of clients on any given day.
Right.
And so that pipeline is well adjusted, if you will. Mm-hmm. And so the other side of it is yes, I ran an ad once to a free live Q&A that I was hosting, that what was funny, and I am such a data geek, a numbers geek, if you will. Mm-hmm. I really wanted to see how well it would convert.
Right.
So what happened was I wound up having about 65 people to this event registered. I could account for, I would say, about 57 of those people where they came from, meaning whether it came from my email list, someone else's email list, because I reached out to them and they knew that I was going to run this thing. So I could account for a good portion of the people that were registered. So there was a small portion of those people that, okay, maybe Facebook, maybe they converted there. Well, Facebook actually told me that they converted like 30. So I was like, okay, well, maybe, I don't know, maybe some people overlapped and they clicked on the ad and registered or whatever. But for me, I was like, okay, that's inflated. Yeah. Right. So I can't, like, if there's a discrepancy in the books, if you will, that's going to drive me crazy. So that's what's always held me back from that, because if I could deduce where somebody's coming from, and then the ad network tells me it's going to be 2 times that or 3 times that, while there may be overlap, it's not necessarily Facebook's conversion that did that. It's just that they're cookied on Facebook, but they also clicked on the link that I sent them via email and got pixeled, and then they converted, right? But they could have been on my list for over a year or whatever. And that they're just going to show up anyway. So for me, that ad network is flawed in that way.
Sure. Yeah. And I never thought of those possibilities. And I guess you wouldn't until you run through the exercise that you did, and also knowing what you know about it, how it works behind the scenes.
And and look, and if there's anybody out there listening to this and says he doesn't know what he's talking about, right? I'm all for that conversation, but that's how I perceived what was happening with that test.
All right, the gauntlet has been thrown. If anybody wants to talk about it.
Absolutely. Because
Rez.com, REZZ.com. You can find him right there.
Exactly. And Rez on Twitter. Come at me, because I want to learn about the ad platforms, not just in the way that, is going to help my business, but for my clients as well. And like, I want to be more educated about, is there a plus minus, right? Like you see those polls all the time. It's like, oh, plus minus 5% or whatever it is. Like I, as a data geek and how I reconcile my books, if you will, there was a big discrepancy. So if it's always going to be 2x or 3x discrepancy, then that's fine. I'm accepted of that. Right. But if I'm totally off, then I look for the correction being made. Mm-hmm.
You got to know. I understand.
Right. Yep.
That's helpful. Yeah, interesting. All right. I want to switch gears, and we'll wrap up a few minutes early, give you some of your morning back. In season 6 of your Live in the Feast podcast, you are focusing on pricing. Are you still in season 6? You are, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
You're focusing on pricing, which is awesome. And I heard, I've some of the emails have been great. I listened to an episode with Chris Dope. Didn't know who he was. He's an interesting fellow, and you had a great interview with him. How do you know one another?
Indirectly and now directly, but I've known Chris for a long time as a partner of Jose, and I'm going to butcher his name because I always do. Caballé, I think is how you pronounce it, where they teamed up a long time ago as designers running the school with a K instead of S. It's SKOOL. Okay. And what that was it helped designers learn the business aspects of their services. And so Chris also started his own design agency. He's got a great YouTube channel. Go ahead and check it out, where he talks all about the business side. He's a designer. He comes from the I guess, for lack of a better term, the traditional design path, if you will, school and all the rest of it. So he's academic in that way, but he learns all about the business aspects, some philosophy, human behavior, those sort of things to bring into his business. And he talks about, pricing, process, systems, how you don't leverage your skills as what you're selling, but you're solving a problem and putting a value on that. And so that always resonated well with me, obviously, because that's a lot of what I talk about too. And what I've learned over the years as well is your skill is a commodity, but the value that you're bringing and how do you solve that problem, that's unique. And so what I just reached out to him one day on Twitter and I said, hey, look, I'm looking to, live in the feast. Is this season's going to be talking about pricing? I would love to have you on. And he graciously accepted. And we just had that conversation.
Yeah, it was great. He tells a great story on his career. And for those of you whose interest we piqued, it's thefuture.com, and it's future without an E at the end. And you can also search The Future on YouTube to see, as Jason said, a very impressive YouTube channel. A lot of the work that he's embarked onto, and I guess particularly on YouTube, is in educating the design masses.
Yes.
And I think it's a really cool mission, and he seems like a really smart guy. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. And the other thing I wanted to ask is if you have any big lessons, key lessons, new things, great reminders that you've learned thus far in your season 6 endeavors where pricing is concerned. Perhaps you wouldn't mind sharing that or those with us.
Wow. Yeah. What's great about the podcast for me anyway, and maybe you found this yourself, is that when a guest comes on, there's always something that I learn, right? Because I don't know everything. And so I just trying to bring the best people to the podcast so that the listeners can hear something, resonate with something, learn something new in which to take away with. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that always intrigued me about online is the name your own price. That business model. Early on, late 90s and early 2000s, this was big for video game downloads and things of that nature, where it was like, hey, you get 50 video games, how much you want to pay for it? $35, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And that model always really intrigued me. And I asked Tom Morkis to come on to the show, and he talked in episode 2 of season 6 all about pay what you want pricing. And he wrote the book on it. And what he said in there, one of the takeaways that I got from that episode was, if you have a lead magnet, right? And the idea behind lead magnets is what could you give away for free that has a value of $100, right? Instead of giving it away for free and driving traffic to this free thing, the free 5 ways in which to do what X, Y, and Z, instead slap a pay what you want price on it, because immediately the perception of that raises up. And while you're still giving it away for free, because people don't have to pay for it, there will be plenty of people that will give you money for it. And it would be surprising and what I found from how he describes his results in the show of what he's done in it, most times it's going to be way more than what you would have normally put a price tag on. And so for me, I was like, okay, what lead magnets can I change and put a pay what you want price on it? Mm-hmm. I never thought about it that way.
Sure.
And, I always came from okay, if I have a $100 thing or a $100 service that I'm offering, should I try it? For me, that's always been the thought in my head. Let me see what people will pay for it. And I was always scared and, to be quite frank, anxious about doing that because I didn't want to do a whole bunch of stuff for free. Yeah, right. But what he shared was that most people are more generous than you think. And he said that on average, if you thought a $25 ebook, that's the price that you were going to put on it, the average that he has from his own experience, it would probably be about $35 would be the average price that people would pay for it. Because people also, and this is the psychology play, is they don't want to feel bad or that they're taking advantage of somebody else. that's generally the human trait that he's found over the years.
Yeah, that's interesting. So this is a kind of a popular. This is a popular strategy among independent musicians, partly because the business has become so changed and is so rapidly changing. But I'm reminded of a really interesting story, or a story I found really interesting by an artist named Shannon Curtis, and she has learned to make her living as an independent music artist, making new music every year and touring, doing house concerts. So she plays in these private invitation-only concerts. And the general rule for those, I learned, for house concerts is, at the time anyway, was a recommended donation of $20 for the artist, which generally gets $20 from everyone who attends. Shannon decided, and it turned out to work greatly in her favor, that she was going to leave it open to donate what the host would say. We're asking that you donate what you think today's entertainment was worth. Mm-hmm. And she makes a lot more money doing that.
Yeah, I bet.
than with the $20 recommended. Yeah.
That's crazy. $20. I would have, when you started going down that road, I was thinking like 150 or something like that. Like $20 doesn't seem sustainable.
Yeah, well, here's what happens. Now we talk about something that's seemingly non-related, but so say you have the space in your home and a great space for doing this, and you happen to be a big fan of Shannon Curtis, and maybe you've done this before, and you know a lot of people who like watching in a listening room. They're just in a listening room to go watch Shannon Curtis, for example. They come in, and everything's very well planned out. She performs, and she's also got a merch table there, so she has a kind of an intermission. She mingles with the crowd before the show, mm-hmm. during the intermission, and after the show. And she's got some merch there, so she may have CDs, books, and in Shannon's case, this is true. She has a lot of different things there, and she also has an opportunity to grab people on her email list and to grow her community. So, yeah. But yeah, $20 doesn't seem like a lot, but for a lot of these independent artists to walk out with anywhere from $200 to $600 for an evening's work, not too bad for a few hours work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I get it. And yeah, I don't know. I never even knew that was a thing either. Like private house concerts. That's cool.
Yeah, you can find them on Meetup. I'm sure there's some in your area.
I'm sure there are. Not in my neighborhood, but in the bigger houses. Yeah, sure. I would assume that.
Yeah, but it is interesting, though, that she has employed the same psychology of that name your own pricing, and I love what your guest suggested on there. So I think that anyone listening here, if you haven't listened to Live in the Feast, Jason's regular podcast, season 6 is a really good one. It's all about pricing. I love that you planned it out that way. And you can also find out everything about Jason at res.com, and it's REZZZ. That's 3 Z's, res.com. You can find out everything he's doing there. And Jason, any parting words, anything you want to leave guests or me with today?
No, just one thing that I was reminded of this week to do is to focus in on what's important for you, your family, and your business in that order for the long term. Don't chase the short term. Because always, well, I don't want to say always, but more often than not will end badly. And badly is a different term to everybody, but it's just not what you're going to expect. And so I would encourage you to, as you work through your business and the seasons of your business, to remain focused in on the long term, because it's going to benefit all 3 of those aspects.
I love that. Thanks, Jason. And thank you again for spending time with me today.
Yeah, anytime.
Thanks again for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, share it with a friend. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your favorites. This episode was powered by Copa Print, your solution for quality printing. I'm talking high-quality printing in both digital and offset, with both 2-color and 4-color processes. Worried about carbon footprint? CopaPrint uses eco-friendly recycled paper on all paper products. CopaPrint is focused on reducing turnaround time and costs. Visit copaprint.net to see all of the amazing products they can produce for your company, to see who some of their clients are, and to request a quote. That's copaprint.net for all of your business printing needs. Be sure to mention that you heard about CopaPrint here on the Partner for Leads podcast. They will hook you up with a 10% discount off your first order. This podcast was produced by yours truly for the Partner for Leads community, providing a reporting platform for referral groups, helping them track referrals, closed business, member participation metrics, and more. The intro-outro music is a track composed and performed by my good friend Frank Salazar. Find links to just about everything mentioned in this episode at partnerforleads.blog. Ciao for now.